30 years old, Leo Miller was a creature of quiet habits and muted colors. If one were to catalog him, the list would be short: plain, frugal, and an easy mark for his more assertive colleagues. His daily uniform consisted of a pair of wire-rimmed glasses, nearly a decade old with paint flaking from the temples, and a rotation of flannel shirts that had long since faded to gentle pastels. He was an analyst at a mid-tier data processing firm, a role he performed with quiet competence. His ambitions were not for corner offices or promotions, but for the day the price of ground beef at the local supermarket might dip below $4 a pound, or for the miraculous appearance of a reliable used hatchback on Craigslist for under $3,000. The window air conditioner in his small apartment was a relic, roaring with the fury of a jet engine when active, a luxury he reserved for only the most soul-scorching summer days. Takeout, with its exorbitant delivery fees and tips, was an indulgence he considered both wasteful and unhealthy. He cooked his own meals, simple and economical. He didn't smoke or drink, his greatest passion a solitary one: deep dives into historical documentaries on the internet, a subject with no bearing on his actual life. Occasionally, he'd venture a comment on a celebrity's social media post, only to be buried under an avalanche of acronyms and slang he couldn't decipher, leaving him with a dull ache of irrelevance. He knew he was out of step with the times, a man of 30 living like a relic unearthed from a bygone era. But it was his life, a placid, numb existence he had grown accustomed to. A coworker from marketing, Tiffany, her makeup flawless and her smile a practiced art, dropped a thick binder on his desk. She pleaded with him to finish up a report for her, explaining she had a happy hour she absolutely couldn't miss. The lightness in her eyes barely registered his existence. Leo pushed his glasses up the bridge of his nose and nodded, telling her to just leave it there. She thanked him profusely, calling him the best before clicking away on her heels, leaving a trail of expensive perfume in her wake. This was a daily ritual: crafting a PowerPoint for one person, writing a summary for another. The initial sting of being taken for granted had long faded into weary resignation. Doing extra work meant less time for awkward social interactions, which he considered a fair trade. Today, however, the workload was unusually heavy. The documents on his desk formed a precarious mountain. He typed furiously, a sense of urgency prickling at him. He had to hurry, or the discounted produce at the grocery store downstairs would be picked clean. They were always the slightly bruised or overripe ones, but the price was right. If you ate them quickly, they were no different from the pristine ones. As he debated the comparative value of discounted apples versus bananas, his department manager burst from his office, his voice booming across the cubicles. He ordered everyone to drop what they were doing. Caleb Vance, a director from the corporate headquarters, had arrived, and they were all to go downstairs to greet him. Corporate? Leo adjusted his glasses, momentarily confused. In his 3 years at this satellite office, he'd never heard a word about a corporate headquarters. Still, it had nothing to do with a low-level employee like him. It was just a formality. A crowd of employees shuffled out of the elevators, packing the building's modest lobby. All Leo could see was a sea of heads. In the center, several of the company's senior managers clustered around a man who stood noticeably taller than the rest, their postures radiating an almost comical deference. Muffled whispers of awe rippled through the crowd. People murmured about how handsome he was, comparing his looks to that of a movie star, his presence utterly captivating. Leo wondered if they were exaggerating. He rose onto his toes, craning his neck, trying to catch a glimpse of this paragon through a gap in the crowd. That was his mistake. The dress shoes he wore were a thrift store find from 3 years ago, their soles worn smooth and slick as glass. He was always careful when he walked, but this sudden shift in balance was too much. His feet shot out from under him. The world spun. He tumbled gracelessly across the polished floor like a mis-thrown bowling ball. A collective gasp rose from the crowd, which parted around him as if he were contagious. Not a single person reached out to help. The first thought that seared through his mind was the sheer, abject humiliation of it all. The second was for his glasses. His vision, already poor, dissolved into a meaningless blur of color and light. He ignored the throbbing pain in his elbow and knee, frantically patting the cold floor. A hand, elegant and composed, retrieved the spectacles before he could. The same hand then took his arm, gently but firmly pulling him to his feet. A calm, resonant voice asked if he was all right. Leo instinctively took the glasses and put them on. Through one shattered lens, the world was a fractured mosaic. But he could still see the man who had helped him. He possessed a striking face, with deep-set eyes, a strong nose, and a mouth that rested in a thoughtful line. His skin was fair, and he wore a perfectly tailored charcoal suit that made him seem utterly out of place in the drab, noisy lobby. The man's brow was furrowed with concern. He asked if Leo was hurt anywhere, if he felt dizzy, and suggested a trip to the hospital for a checkup. Leo waved his hands in frantic refusal, his face burning. He insisted it was just a fall and that he was fine, truly. The embarrassment was excruciating enough. A hospital bill would be catastrophic. But Caleb was persistent, his tone gentle yet unyielding. He thought it was better to be safe, mentioning the possibility of a mild concussion. He turned to one of the fawning local managers and informed them he was taking this employee to the hospital and that they should carry on. The managers nodded and bowed, agreeing immediately. And so, under a storm of pitying, envious, and curious gazes, Leo was escorted out of the building by the celestial-seeming director and settled into a car that looked more expensive than his entire apartment. The ride was tense. Leo shrank into the passenger seat, twisting the frayed hem of his shirt, too intimidated to speak. While they waited at a red light, he reflexively glanced at a familiar discount grocer on the corner. The sale signs were already up, and a small crowd was gathered around the produce bins. A sigh escaped him before he could stop it. Caleb noticed, following his gaze. He asked what was wrong. Leo quickly shook his head, claiming it was nothing. Caleb didn't press the issue. The light turned green, and the car glided past the store. A few minutes later, however, Caleb pulled over to the curb. He asked Leo to wait a moment, then got out and walked into a high-end organic market. Leo watched as he disappeared inside, emerging shortly after with a large, beautifully arranged gift basket. It was filled with a vibrant assortment of fruits, each one plump and perfect, including exotic berries and mangoes whose price tags he knew would have multiple zeros. Caleb placed the basket in Leo's lap. He explained it was for him. Leo, holding the heavy, fragrant offering, felt his entire body stiffen. He protested that it was far too much, that he couldn't accept it. Caleb offered a small smile, restarting the car. He explained that he felt partly responsible for the fall and that besides, eating more fruit was good for one's health. Through the fractured lens, Caleb's smile was still dazzlingly bright. Leo looked down at the basket, likely worth a week's worth of his own groceries, and his mind was a tangled mess. The next day at work, Leo wore his spare glasses. The prescription was off, giving him a dull headache, and the loose frames kept sliding down his nose. But he couldn't bring himself to spend money on a new pair just yet. He would endure. He was buried in a pile of reports that weren't his, the world swimming slightly before his eyes. The ill-fitting frames dug into the bridge of his nose, forcing him to pause every few minutes to rub his temples. A coworker from the next cubicle over, a young man named Kevin, leaned over and asked if he was feeling okay, remarking that he looked pale. Leo forced a smile and mumbled something about a poor night's sleep. He was distracted and inefficient all day. Near quitting time, a calm voice spoke beside his desk, making him jump. He asked if Leo wasn't feeling well. Leo looked up, startled. Caleb Vance was standing there, leaning over slightly, his brow creased as he studied Leo's face. He wore a more casual suit today, which softened his authoritative aura, but he was still a starkly brilliant figure in the muted office landscape. Leo stammered out Caleb's title, nearly biting his tongue. He asked what he was doing there. Caleb explained he was checking on a project's progress. His gaze fixed on the old, crooked glasses perched on Leo's nose. He correctly surmised that the prescription was wrong and the frames were loose. Leo started to deny it, but Caleb cut him off, his tone leaving no room for argument. He told Leo to wait for him after work. He would take him to get a new pair. Leo protested again, insisting it wasn't necessary and would be too much trouble. But Caleb's quiet authority was absolute. He stated that yesterday's pair broke because of him, so it was his responsibility. He paused, his eyes sweeping over the mountain of documents on Leo's desk, a subtle chill entering his voice. He added that Leo's current state was affecting his efficiency and impacting his work. That final reason silenced Leo's objections. When the 5 o'clock bell chimed, Leo packed his things with painstaking slowness, hoping Caleb had forgotten. He hadn't. He appeared at the office door, and amidst a flurry of curious and envious glances, he nodded for Leo to come. The process of getting new glasses was an exercise in anxiety. The optometrist's numbers made him wince internally at the implied cost. Caleb listened intently to the recommendations, then pointed to the most expensive anti-glare lenses and a pair of understated, elegant titanium frames, telling the clerk to use those. Leo started to object, but Caleb's calm, decisive air made it feel futile. The moment he put on the new glasses, the world snapped into sharp, brilliant focus. The frames were so light he could barely feel them. He stared at his reflection, still ordinary, but no longer distorted, a whirlwind of emotions churning inside him. He thanked Caleb quietly, mentally calculating how much of a company expense this would be and if it would cause him trouble. Caleb replied that it was a small matter. His gaze lingered on Leo's face for a few seconds longer than necessary, and he remarked that they suited him. A strange warmth crept up Leo's ears. From that day on, Caleb's presence became more frequent. He always had a valid reason: project oversight, workflow optimization, employee wellness checks. And he always seemed to have a free moment to have lunch with Leo or to offer him a ride home. Lunch was no longer Leo's leftover pasta, but quiet, clean little restaurants Caleb found. He had an uncanny knack for ordering dishes that suited Leo's tastes, even remembering that he disliked cilantro. When another coworker tried to offload their work onto Leo, Caleb would intervene without seeming to, his voice even but laced with pressure. He would ask if that wasn't part of their own duties, reminding them that Leo had his own tasks to complete. The coworker would usually stammer an apology and retreat with their files. After a few such incidents, the atmosphere around Leo's cubicle subtly changed. The extra work dried up, and the snide comments ceased. While no one went out of their way to befriend him, no one dared to openly use him anymore. He felt as though he'd been placed under an invisible shield. The feeling was alien, causing him both anxiety and a secret, tentative pleasure. He began to look forward to Caleb's appearances, to the quiet offer of lunch, to the brief, peaceful silences in his car. He knew it was wrong. They were from two different universes. Caleb was a radiant moon in a clear night sky, and he was just an unremarkable speck of dust on the ground. He couldn't fathom why Caleb was being so kind to him. Was it pity? A sense of obligation? Or was he just this polite and considerate to everyone? At a department dinner, his colleagues decided to go to a karaoke bar. Leo planned to slip away, but a single look from Caleb rooted him to the spot. The private room was a cacophony of loud music and mixed scents of beer and smoke. Leo retreated to a corner, feeling utterly out of place as he watched his normally staid colleagues sing badly off-key. Caleb, who had been coerced into a few drinks, seemed unaffected, his cheeks only slightly flushed. He leaned back against the sofa, quietly watching the screen. Someone shoved a microphone into Leo's hands, urging him to sing. Mortified, Leo shook his head, wishing the floor would swallow him whole. Suddenly, Caleb spoke. His voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the noise, silencing the boisterous group. He stated that Leo didn't want to. He took the microphone from Leo's hand and set it aside, telling them not to pressure him. In that moment, under the bar's swirling, colored lights, Caleb turned to look at him. His eyes were deep and held a focus, a warmth, that Leo found difficult to interpret. Leo's heart skipped a beat, and he quickly looked down, unable to meet that intense gaze. After the party, Caleb insisted on driving him home. The cool night air helped clear his head. They walked side by side down the quiet street, their shadows stretching long under the streetlights. Leo quietly thanked him for his help earlier. Caleb's voice was low as he replied it was nothing, adding that if Leo didn't like such places, he didn't have to go in the future. Leo mumbled that it was fine. Then, summoning all his courage, he asked the question that had been tormenting him. He asked Caleb why he was being so nice to him. Caleb stopped walking and turned to face him. The streetlight cast shadows across his handsome features, obscuring his expression. After a few seconds of silence, a soft laugh escaped him, the sound almost lost in the night breeze. He turned the question back on Leo, asking what he thought. Leo was flummoxed. If he knew, he wouldn't have asked. He looked at Caleb, bewildered. Caleb didn't answer directly. Instead, he reached out and, with a startlingly natural gesture, gently brushed a stray lock of hair from Leo's forehead. The touch was brief, but it felt like a hot coal against his skin, sending a rush of blood to his head that left him frozen. Because as Caleb looked at his stunned expression, the hint of a smile in his eyes deepened. His tone was serious, yet somehow teasing. He told Leo that he was interesting. Interesting? What could possibly be interesting about a dull 30-year-old man like him? But that ambiguous phrase, coupled with the intimate gesture, was like a stone dropped into the stagnant pool of his heart, sending shocking ripples through him. He couldn't sleep that night. He tossed and turned, Caleb's face, his voice, the phantom touch of his fingers replaying in his mind. A strange, searing emotion began to sprout uncontrollably from the depths of his soul. He knew this was dangerous, absurd, but he felt his defenses crumbling. What did Caleb mean? Did he find his frugality amusing? Was the way he fell particularly unique? Or could Caleb Vance actually see something different beneath his gray, unremarkable exterior? He dared not think too deeply. For someone so accustomed to disappointment, hope was a lethal poison. But Caleb's attention did not wane. If anything, it intensified. He began asking Leo to the movies. Not as part of a group outing, but just the two of them, a clear and specific invitation. He'd ask if Leo was free on the weekend, mentioning a new film that had good reviews. Leo's first instinct was to make excuses, work, other plans. But Caleb's calm, steady gaze seemed to see right through his flimsy lies. So he found himself in a movie theater, the price of the ticket making him inwardly cringe, even though Caleb had paid. The sweet, cloying scent of popcorn filled the air. Caleb had bought a large bucket and placed it on the armrest between them. In the darkness, the screen's light sculpted the sharp profile of Caleb's face. Leo's palms were sweating, his focus entirely on the man beside him rather than the plot unfolding on screen. He was acutely aware of every small movement Caleb made. Caleb would occasionally lean over and whisper a question about the plot or comment on the special effects. The warm breath against his ear sent a shiver down his spine. After the movie, Caleb would take him to restaurants Leo had never dared to enter. They weren't ostentatiously fancy, but they were clean, quiet, and served unique food. Caleb seemed to have an innate sense of Leo's preferences, always ordering dishes he ended up loving. Leo grew more and more bewildered, and more captivated. He was like a parched desert suddenly blessed with rain. He knew it might be a fleeting mirage, but he couldn't help but greedily absorb every drop. He started paying more attention to his appearance. He began ironing his flannel shirts. On a whim, he walked into a stylish barbershop he'd always been too intimidated to enter and got a neater haircut. Though a colleague teased him the next day, asking if he was going on a date. The flash of what looked like approval in Caleb's eyes when he noticed the change quickly eclipsed any embarrassment. He was becoming someone he didn't recognize. He found himself constantly waiting for a message from Caleb. When he ate something good, his first thought was whether Caleb would like it. He remembered Caleb's casual comment about the weather getting colder and clumsily knitted a lopsided scarf, which he then hid in the back of a drawer, too shy to ever give it to him. He knew he was done for. He was impossibly falling in love with Caleb Vance. Falling for someone so far out of his league, so perfect he seemed unreal. The feeling brought him joy, but it terrified him even more. It was like walking on clouds, exhilarating with every step, but with the constant fear that the next one would send him plummeting back to earth. Why me? The question became a mantra, a curse that haunted him day and night, until one evening, he had a dream of surreal and chilling clarity. There was no scenery, only a flow of cold, mechanical data pouring into his mind. Profile: Leo Miller designation. Background asset NPC predetermined arc. Obscurity, numbness, isolation until expiration. Operative: Caleb Vance objective. Cultivate affection in target Leo Miller to 100% threshold. Reward: extraction to reality prime. He woke with a jolt, sitting bolt upright in bed, his pajamas soaked in cold sweat. His heart hammered against his ribs, but his mind was terrifyingly clear. The words were burned into his memory. So that was it. All the questions, all the confusion, answered in an instant. Caleb's sudden attention, his perfectly calibrated kindness, his seemingly sincere gestures. It was all part of a meticulously designed mission. He was just a background character in a game, a tool to be used. All the good things Caleb did were just to earn a prize, a ticket back to his real world. A gaping hole opened in his chest, and an icy wind howled through it, bringing a deep, numbing cold. It wasn't because he was special. It was just a task. Tears fell without. He made no sound, simply letting them trail down his face and drip onto the back of his hand, cold and silent. It was better this way. At least now he knew his role in this game. He wouldn't have to agonize or live on false hope anymore. It was just, why did his heart hurt so much? When morning came, he looked at his pale, swollen-eyed reflection in the mirror and slapped his cheeks. "It's okay, Leo," he told himself. "You're used to this, aren't you? Used to disappointment, to being overlooked, to being unloved. If Caleb needed to complete his mission, then he would help him." Caleb wasn't a bad person. At the very least, he had given him an incredibly realistic, beautiful dream. He had let him know what it felt like to be cared for, to be treated as if he mattered. That was enough. As for what would happen to him after Caleb returned to his own world, he would likely go back to being a background character, living his frugal, numb existence until the story ended. That was fine. He took a deep breath and forced a smile that felt more painful than crying. From that day on, he changed. He no longer shied away from Caleb's presence or demurred at his kindness. When Caleb invited him to dinner, he went, forcing himself to appear happy. When Caleb drove him home, he sat quietly in the passenger seat, making occasional small talk. When Caleb looked at him, he met his gaze, trying to inject a convincing amount of affection into his eyes. But somewhere deep inside him, a part of him had gone cold and dead, as if covered in a thick layer of dust that dulled everything he saw. Caleb seemed to notice the change. His gaze grew more probing, more questioning. Sometimes he would ask if Leo had something on his mind, or comment that he seemed different lately. A knot of anxiety would tighten in Leo's stomach, but he would feign confusion, blaming it on the weather. Caleb wouldn't press, but his deep-set eyes would linger on him, as if trying to see past the compliant facade to the withered soul within. The mission must be almost complete, he thought numbly. One evening, under a beautiful full moon, they finished dinner and took a walk along the city's riverfront. The gentle breeze and the golden lights reflecting on the water created a perfect, stage-like atmosphere. Caleb stopped and turned to face him. His expression was serious, tinged with a tension Leo had never seen in him before. His eyes, the ones that could so easily make Leo lose himself, were filled with a complex storm of emotions as they fixed on him. He began to speak, his voice deeper and huskier than usual. He told Leo there was something he'd been wanting to say for a long time. This was it, the final judgment. An invisible hand squeezed his heart, the pain so sharp he could barely breathe. But he managed to maintain a carefully constructed expression of slight confusion and anticipation. Caleb hesitated, as if searching for the right words, his focus absolute. He confessed that he thought he was falling for him. The wind seemed to die. Leo looked at the man who had made his heart ache with both love and sorrow, at the seemingly genuine devotion in his eyes. He's a very good actor, a desolate part of his mind noted. Then he heard his own voice, light and tinged with a convincing shyness. That's funny, Caleb. I was starting to feel the same way. As the words left his mouth, he saw Caleb's pupils contract sharply. A fleeting, almost imperceptible look of astonishment crossed his face, as if he'd heard something utterly unexpected. But it vanished as quickly as it appeared, so fast Leo thought he might have imagined it. In the next second, a brilliant, relieved smile bloomed on Caleb's face, his eyes lighting up as if filled with stars. He reached out as if to embrace him, but then just gripped his shoulders tightly, his voice overflowing with joy. He asked if it was true, exclaiming how wonderful that was. His joy was so real it was disorienting. But the cold reality quickly reasserted itself. Yes, wonderful. Your mission is finally complete. You can go home now. Leo looked down to hide the tears welling in his eyes and forced a smile of his own. Yes, he whispered. Wonderful. After that night, it was as if a great weight had been lifted from Caleb. He became even more attentive, his messages more frequent, his concern weaving into every part of Leo's life. The way he looked at him grew deeper, more intense, filled with an emotion Leo could no longer decipher. Leo did his best to play his part, to be the clumsy, happy partner caught in the first flush of love. He replied to every text, accepted every invitation, and tried to look adoringly at Caleb whenever their eyes met. It was harder than he had imagined. Every smile felt like a needle in his heart. Every time Caleb held his hand, his own fingers felt cold and wanted to curl away. Every time Caleb talked about their future, a block of ice formed in his stomach. He was waiting for Caleb to leave, like waiting for a ripe apple to fall from a tree. In all the stories, once the mission was complete, the reward was issued instantly, and the hero vanished in a flash of light. Why was Caleb still here? The days bled into one another, and he showed no sign of disappearing. Instead, a strange sense of urgency and anxiety began to emanate from him. Sometimes he would pull Leo into a fierce hug, holding him so tightly it felt as if he were trying to merge their bodies, murmuring his name and telling him not to forget him. Other times, as Leo slept, Caleb would gently stroke his hair for hours, ending with a soft, heavy sigh. Was he delaying? Was the system's reward on backorder? Leo's heart, worn thin by the daily performance, grew more fragile with each passing day. Finally, on an ordinary Wednesday afternoon, Caleb took him to the small diner where they'd had their first lunch together. Halfway through the meal, he put down his fork and looked at Leo, his expression eerily calm, a calm that masked a raging storm beneath. He told Leo he might have to go away on a long trip for work. The happening, Leo thought. The hand holding his fork trembled almost imperceptibly. He forced himself to look up, his face a mask of surprise and disappointment. He asked where he was going and for how long. Caleb avoided his gaze, his voice strained. He said it was to a very distant place, and that his return date was uncertain. He paused, then looked back, his eyes holding a desperate plea. He asked if Leo would wait for him. The bitter sorrow in Leo's chest was almost enough to make him cry out, but he managed to force a smile. "Of course I will," he said. "I'll wait for you to come back." Caleb stared at him for a long, long time, the violent emotions in his eyes eventually melting into a deep tenderness. "Good," he whispered, the word like a sigh. "Remember you said that." That evening, Caleb was unusually quiet. On the drive home, he held Leo's hand tightly, as if letting go would make him vanish. At the foot of his apartment building, Caleb pulled him into one last embrace. He told him to take care of himself, his voice raspy. He told him to eat on time, to not just buy the discounted fruit, to stop being such a pushover, to be good to himself. The list of instructions was so mundane, so unlike him, that Leo's nose stung, and he almost broke character. He buried his face in Caleb's chest and nodded. Caleb finally let him go and walked away into the night. His posture was straight, but his silhouette seemed desolate and resolute. Leo didn't go upstairs. He just stood there, watching until Caleb's back disappeared around the corner. The enormous weight that had been suspended over his heart finally crashed down, shattering everything inside him, the pain so intense he could barely stand. He was gone. He had really gone, back to his real world. Leo's part in the mission was at last over. A day passed, then two. A week went by. It was as if Caleb Vance had evaporated from the face of the earth. The text stopped. His phone number was disconnected. At the office, the official story was that Director Vance had completed his project and been reassigned. Leo's life returned to its original state. Or rather, something worse. The warmth and attention that had been forced upon him were ripped away, leaving a gaping, ice-cold void. He went back to packing leftovers, to scouring the market for deals, to silently accepting work his colleagues pushed on him. But nothing was the same. The food was tasteless. The fruit held only the sourness of impending rot. His colleagues' whispers seemed sharper, more piercing. The world had lost its color again, reverting to a monotonous, soul-crushing gray. He moved like an automaton, repeating his old routines but with his inner core hollowed out. After work, he would find himself standing outside the boutique eyewear shop, staring at the frames in the window. He'd take the bus on a long, roundabout route just to pass the little diner, watching the warm lights and the silhouettes of people inside. He would go to the movies alone, sitting in the back corner, and stay until the series finished and the lights came up, illuminating the empty seats and the cold tears on his face. He walked every street they had walked together, replaying their time together in his mind, the memories like a knife twisting in his gut, a self-inflicted torture he couldn't stop. It turned out that losing warmth was infinitely more painful than simply being used to the cold. He didn't understand what was wrong with him. It was just a mission, an act. He was the one who knew the truth, the one cooperating with the performance. So why was he the one who couldn't escape the role? He concluded, a truly pathetic and foolish NPC. In another dimension, another world, Caleb Vance awoke in a cold transference pod. A colossal sense of loss and emptiness consumed him instantly. He could almost smell the faint, clean scent of soap on Leo's skin, could still feel the phantom warmth of his hand. Mission completion. 100% reward settlement. Extraction to Reality Prime initiated. Credits disbursed. SSS rank evaluation. System bonus awarded. Wealth class elevated to apex. Socioeconomic status permanently solidified. The system's cold, synthesized voice listed the lavish rewards. These were the things Caleb had once risked everything for, but now they sounded hollow and meaningless. He had succeeded. He had completed the most difficult mission, earned an unprecedented rating and prize. He had everything he had ever wanted. But the hole in his chest only grew larger, a bitter wind howling through it. His mind replayed the moment Leo had looked at him and said he felt the same way. In those eyes, usually so timid and gentle, behind the forced joy, he now saw a bottomless abyss of sorrow and resignation. A terrible thought, like a venomous snake, slithered into his mind. Leo, did he know all along? Once the thought took root, it was impossible to ignore. Details he had overlooked came flooding back. Leo's strange compliance in the later stages, the way his eyes would often look vacant and lost, his unhesitating, perfectly timed confession. System. Caleb screamed inside his mind, his voice raw. Did Leo know about the mission from the start? The system paused for a moment before its mechanical voice responded. As per protocol, NPCs in target realities have an extremely low probability of perceiving mission parameters due to intense emotional stimuli or unforeseen system anomalies. The words struck Caleb like a bolt of lightning. His face went deathly pale. He knew all along. So he played along, acted out the final scene, and sent him home. And Caleb's own ecstatic joy in that moment, in Leo's eyes, he must have looked like a complete and utter fool. Total fraud. Which meant his own later reluctance and pain must have seemed even more hypocritical and laughable. His heart felt like it was being crushed by a giant fist, the pain making it hard to breathe. Boundless regret and an overwhelming tide of longing drowned him. He had gained everything, and yet he felt he had nothing at all. System. Caleb's voice trembled with desperate pleading. Let me go back, just to see him one more time. Just once, please. Insufficient clearance. Mission is complete. Transference channel is closed. The system's reply was cold and final. "I'll trade all my seers," Caleb roared. "Just for one more look. Just one." The system went silent again. For a long time, just as Caleb was about to collapse in despair, the air in front of him shimmered and a translucent screen materialized. On it was a familiar yet alien street. Leo, wearing a faded blue flannel shirt and carrying a cheap grocery bag, was walking slowly past the diner where they'd had their first lunch. He stopped, looking up at the sign, and stood there for a long time. The streetlight cast a lonely shadow, making him look so small, so fragile. Then he turned and continued walking. His shoulders slumped, as if crushed by an invisible weight. Caleb's fingernails dug into his palms, breaking the skin, but he didn't feel it. He watched Leo go to the supermarket and pick through the discounted fruit, finally choosing a small box of bruised apples. He watched him return to his small, dim apartment. The kitchen was cold and dark. He boiled water and made a cup of the cheapest instant noodles, sitting at a small table to eat in silence. Halfway through, his movements slowed. He raised a hand and roughly wiped his eye. He watched Leo suffer from insomnia late at night, sitting on his bed, hugging his knees, staring out the window into the blackness, motionless as a statue. The screen shifted through scenes of Leo's life alone, a gray, repetitive loop without him. Every time he lingered near a place they had been, every time he cried silently at the end of a movie, every time he startled awake in the middle of the night and looked around the empty room, Caleb's heart was being sliced apart, piece by piece. He saw, beneath Leo's quiet, numb exterior, a raging, unspoken grief. And he saw, at the heart of that grief, a clumsy, desperate love that had not been extinguished. "I'm sorry, Leo. I'm so sorry." Caleb wept at the screen like a broken child, tears blurring his vision. "I didn't know. I really didn't know you." He had always thought he was the one bestowing warmth. But the man who seemed so ordinary and meek had long ago captured him with the purest affection. And he had been the one to shatter it all. "System." Caleb looked up, his bloodshot eyes wild with a final, desperate resolve. "Tell me how to go back. Permanently." Warning: permanent immersion in target reality requires forfeiture of all accrued credits, rewards, and clearances. All wealth, status, and existential traces in Reality Prime will be erased. This action is irreversible. Do you confirm? The system's voice was devoid of any emotion. Caleb looked at the screen, at Leo curled up asleep on his sofa, a tear track still damp on his cheek. He suddenly smiled, a tearful, liberated, and determined smile. "Confirm. Transaction confirmed. Preparing transfer. Farewell. Operative Caleb Vance." A blinding white light consumed everything. Life's gears, rusted and slow, ground forward. It had been 3 months since Caleb left. Leo had grown used to the silence of his phone, to his lunches returning to cold leftovers, to once again silently accepting work from his colleagues. But the hole in his chest hadn't healed with time. If anything, it ached with every breath, a constant reminder of that brief, indelible memory. He still sometimes walked the paths they had walked together, no longer with overwhelming sadness, but with a sudden, hollow feeling, like missing a step on a staircase. Tonight, after work, he went to the supermarket again. The discounted fruit looked particularly sad, a few apples wrinkled and bruised. He hesitated, then put them in his basket. They were cheap and still edible. Carrying the plastic bag, he walked out into a beautiful sunset. The sky was a warm orange, but its light couldn't penetrate the chill in his heart. Head down, He debated whether to eat leftovers or make another packet of instant noodles. As he reached the foot of his old apartment building, he glanced up out of habit. And then he froze, the plastic bag slipping from his grasp. The bruised apples rolled across the pavement. There, leaning against the wall in the dim light of the entryway, was a figure. Tall, slender, dressed in a simple white t-shirt and faded jeans, with a small duffel bag at his feet. The evening breeze stirred his dark hair, revealing the face Leo thought he would only ever see again in his memories. Caleb? What was he doing here? Shouldn't he be in his own world, enjoying his hard-won rewards? Was this a hallucination, born from his own desperate longing? He blinked hard, even pinching his own arm. It hurt. He was not dreaming. The figure seemed to sense his gaze and slowly looked up. Their eyes met. Caleb's face was pale, with dark circles of exhaustion under his eyes. But his gaze was as deep and magnetic as ever. Only now, it was not filled with easygoing warmth, but with a complex mixture of tension, nervousness, guilt, and an almost humble hope. They stared at each other across the few yards of concrete, motionless. Time seemed to stop. A neighbor walking by with her groceries cast a curious glance at them, breaking the spell. Leo's mind caught up with his body. His heart began to thunder in his chest. Blood rushed to his head, then receded just as quickly, leaving his fingers cold and trembling. He bent down, fumbling to pick up the scattered apples, using the motion to hide the turmoil inside him. A pair of long, slender hands reached down first, gathering the apples one by one and placing them back in the bag. His fingertips brushed against the back of Leo's hand. A warm, solid touch. Leo snatched his hand back as if burned. He stood up and took a step back, watching him warily. "What are you doing here?" His voice was hoarse and shaky. Caleb stood, holding the bag of bruised apples. He saw Leo's retreat, and his expression darkened, a bitter smile touching his lips. He began, his voice also raw. "I came back from his real world. For a vacation? Or was there a bug in the mission?" 1,000 questions exploded in Leo's mind, but he couldn't voice a single one. He just gripped the hem of his shirt, his nails digging into his palms, the pain a welcome anchor to reality. Oh, he managed a dry, empty sound. He looked down at his worn-out shoes. "Is there something you need?" "Yes." Caleb took a step closer, his eyes locking onto Leo's, his tone one of final, desperate resolve. "Leo, I came back to apologize." Leo's heart clenched. Was he going to confess it all now? Apologize for using his feelings? Fine. Better to have it all out in the open to kill the last embers of hope. He took a deep breath, trying to keep his voice steady. "You don't have to explain. I know everything." He paused, swallowing the lump in his throat. "I know you were on a mission. I know you needed me to fall in love with you so you could go back. So you don't need to apologize. I was a willing participant. I'm glad you completed your mission and went home. Congratulations." After he finished, he felt utterly drained, as if he'd completed a marathon. He turned to flee into the building. "It's not like that." Caleb grabbed his wrist, his grip surprisingly strong, his voice frantic with pain and panic. "Leo, listen to me, it's not what you think." Leo struggled, trying to pull away, but Caleb held him tighter. "First, yes, it was because of the mission." Caleb's words tumbled out in a rush, as if he feared Leo would disappear if he spoke too slowly. "Getting close to you, being nice to you, it was all for a purpose. I admit it. I was a monster." His eyes reddened, his voice thick with emotion. "But later I really fell for you. I fell for your kindness, for your resilience." for the way you still held on to hope even though life was so hard on you. I fell for you, Leo, not the mission target. Leo stopped struggling, staring at him blankly. A tear rolled down Caleb's pale cheek and landed on the wrist he held, a searingly hot drop. I only found out after I went back that you knew all along. His voice trembled with uncontrollable regret. I watched you, walking our streets alone, going to the movies alone, eating instant noodles alone. I watched you grieve, watched you cry in secret, and my heart felt like it was being cut to pieces. Leo, I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. Like a lost child, Caleb broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. I shouldn't have lied to you. I shouldn't have left you alone. Leo looked at this broken, weeping man, and his own heart ached fiercely. All the hurt, the anger, the resentment he had suppressed for so long seemed to find a release. Then why did you come back? He asked, his voice cracking. You already got everything you wanted, didn't you? The money, the status, why come back? To pity me? Not pity. Caleb shook his head forcefully. He cupped Leo's face with both hands, forcing him to meet his gaze. His eyes were blazing with a sincerity and love that was almost painful to look at. It's because I love you, Leo. I gave up everything over there. The CRS, the rewards, the money, the status. I don't want any of it. He was almost shouting, every word heavy with the weight of his sacrifice. I used everything I had to buy a one-way ticket to stay here permanently. The system said it's irreversible, that I can never go back. But I don't regret it for a second. He looked deeply into Leo's eyes, his own as steady as stone. Without you, none of that means anything to me. Leo was stunned, his mind a complete blank. He gave up everything just to come back for him? How was that possible? He was a task runner, a player. He was supposed to... I know this is hard for you to believe. Caleb saw his silence, and the light in his eyes dimmed. The hands holding his face trembled slightly. His voice dropped to a humble plea. I'm not asking you to forgive me right away. I'm just asking you to give me a chance. Let me prove it to you. This time, there's no mission, no deception. Just me, Caleb, wanting to be with you with all my heart. The evening wind whispered past, carrying the last cool breath of summer. The entryway lights stretched their shadows long across the pavement, making them intertwine. Leo looked at the man before him, crying, broken, having abandoned an entire world just to be here. He was no longer the superior, flawless operative. He was messy, vulnerable, and incredibly real. The thick wall of ice around Leo's heart finally began to crack. Resentment, anger, disbelief, all of it was still there. But beneath it, something he couldn't control was beginning to grow. A wild, impossible hope. He opened his mouth to say something, but no sound came out. Instead, he simply lifted his hand and gently, tentatively, wiped away the tears on Caleb's cheek. The touch was feather-light, but it was like a signal. Caleb's body went rigid, and then his dim eyes erupted with a brilliant, disbelieving light. He pulled Leo into his arms, crushing him against his chest with a force that seemed to say he would never let go again. Leo, Leo. He buried his face in Leo's neck, repeating his name over and over. Thank you for giving me another chance. This time, his embrace wasn't a gentle, mission-oriented gesture. It was scalding hot and trembling with real, unvarnished emotion. Leo didn't push him away. He let himself be held, feeling the frantic beat of Caleb's heart, the warmth of his body. And finally, his own tears began to fall, silent and cleansing. Caleb stayed. He was no longer the brilliant director from headquarters. He found a normal job with a decent salary. He learned to navigate the grocery store with Leo, haggling over pennies with a charming awkwardness. He insisted on doing chores, though he often made a mess of the kitchen. He ate Leo's simple, home-cooked meals with genuine enjoyment and would secretly buy the expensive, fresh fruit Leo denied himself, cutting it up and insisting that he eat it. Caleb integrated himself completely into Leo's ordinary, mundane, and sometimes even tacky life. There were no grand romantic gestures, only the steady, quiet comfort of companionship. Slowly, Leo began to believe that Caleb was truly here to stay, not for a mission, but for him. One evening, they were curled up on the sofa watching an old movie as a gentle rain fell outside. Leo, resting his head on Caleb's chest, suddenly remembered his old question. "Why did you say I was interesting back then?" he asked quietly. Caleb leaned down and kissed the top of his head, his arms tightening around him. He chuckled softly. "Because the first time I saw you, you took that awful fall, and your first thought wasn't about the pain or the embarrassment, but about finding your glasses before someone stepped on them. Later, I realized that you seem meek, but you're tougher than anyone I've ever met. You took so much from everyone without complaint, you just absorbed it and kept going with your life. You were like a wildflower growing through a crack in the pavement. You looked fragile, but nothing could break you." He paused, his voice growing softer, more serious. "And then, I realized I couldn't live without my wildflower." Leo listened, a warmth spreading through his chest, as if he were soaking in a hot bath. All this time, when he had felt he was worthless, in Caleb's eyes, he had been shining. He turned in Caleb's arms and kissed him. The rain pattered against the window, but inside, the small apartment was warm and bright.